So competitive excellence, the name of the game this week for the Ohio State Buckeyes, as we welcome in an excellent competitor in his own right, Tony Gerdeman from BuckeyeHuddle.com. Gerd, thank you for joining us once again on College Football Weekly.
Thank you for competitively and excellently having me today.
So we heard from both Ryan Day and CJ Stroud. That's how they're trying to guard against the letdown. And it's not something they've started this week. It's something that was built the entire offseason. And probably, honestly, they started building in January about making sure you bring it week in and week out. I thought that was very telling from CJ Stroud that he said he thought at times last year they might have played down to the competition a little bit.
Yeah, and I would counter you with instead of January, I'd say they probably started it in December after the loss to Michigan, where they really had things explained to them on the football field that they were not excellent enough, and many would argue they were not competitive enough, and you saw the results. And I think that was a driving force through all of the offseason, through the winter, through the spring, through the summer, and then, into the fourth quarter when they needed to have it against Notre Dame. The offense took it over, and they didn't do it through CJ Stroud necessarily, though he had some great plays. They did what Ryan Day was hoping to see, and they had been working for is, they got it done at the line of scrimmage with the run game and with force and with the effort and determination. And that's some of that competitive excellence that Ryan Day was preaching about all year long.
There certainly seems to be a Heisman Trophy candidacy already in the making for C.J. Stroud, and since his numbers against Notre Dame weren't great, they weren't horrible, they weren't great. Yes, C.J. Stroud, he says the only number he cares about was the one, as in the one victory, they're 1-0. But they're really trying to get the human interest side out about C.J. Stroud. We've heard a lot this past weekend or so about his backstory and some of the things he has overcome.
Yeah, you've seen him taking part in big sit-down one-on-one interviews to talk about his past and his family, and then even after the game itself, getting into it a little bit. And then we talked with him again today, and it's noticeable. And granted, talking to the quarterback every week is something that is always done, but this has been a little bit more in depth, where you don't always feel like you are necessarily allowed to go too far when talking to somebody. I think in these instances, it's been invited to give you, like you said, personal interest, a human interest story. Let him know, let people know that he's more than just this quarterback. Get to know him more, and I mean, because when we talk to him, I think he is more than a quarterback, and everybody's getting to see more and more of that. And it's definitely interesting that it gets noticed. It is noticeable when you go behind the curtain like this, especially so early in the season.
This Notre Dame game, I think some of the conventional wisdom going in was, at least certainly from a personnel standpoint offensively, this will be just like what we saw against Utah in the Rose Bowl. Well, it's not what we saw against Utah. Part of this is because Jackson Smith-Njigba was not able to play much. The good news is it's only thought to be maybe a week or two that he'll be out, a hamstring injury. They don't expect that to be long-term. But I guess maybe we were expecting them to just roll the football out in the field and score 40 points. It's not that easy, though.
No, it's not. And I think maybe I think we all thought it would be plenty easy, but we also thought Jackson Smith-Njigba would be out there. You figure the passing game that we saw in the Rose Bowl would be what you saw in this game, because most of the pieces are there. And then you take one away in Jackson Smith-Njigba, you take another away in Julian Fleming, two of your top four receivers, and suddenly everybody moves up a spot or two spots, and you have to act like nothing has changed when things have significantly changed. And CJ Stroud talked about how not having Jackson Smith-Njigba out there changed a lot of what they wanted to do. It changed how much they were going to attack downfield, and it changed what Emeka Egbuka was going to do, where he had to move into the slot more. And so it's just the reason Brian Hartline, a receivers coach, has taught all of these guys all these different positions is for days like this. But also the first game always has its issues, its communication issues, its timing issues. And you saw that quite a bit. You saw that enough times to make it noticeable against Notre Dame, where you have receivers talking to each other and looking to the sideline as the ball is being snapped, which throws off the entire timing of a play, and CJ has to deal with that. I thought he talked about one of those particular plays very well, where he explained it through the eyes of a quarterback, where if he would have thrown it where the receiver is going, it would have been a pick six. And, he tried to, it was a bad throw in terms of where it was and in terms of the receiver's hands, but it was a good throw in terms of where it was, in terms of where the defense was and his thought process. It's very interesting to hear him talk quarterback as well, and not just life behind the scenes. But yeah, it was I think certainly everybody was surprised. And the first question Ryan Day got asked after the game is, were you surprised that the offense struggled? And he was basically like, I refuse to answer that question right off the bat. Let me tell you about some of the good stuff, and then I will answer the question about the bad stuff.
And perhaps another takeaway is Notre Dame's defense is better than Utah's defense, because the Fighting Irish did an excellent job of keeping everything in front of the last line of defense. So there wasn't a whole lot of yards after catch. There wasn't a whole lot of breaking tackles and guys running free in the secondary. So give some credit to Marcus Freeman and Al Golden's defense.
Yeah, and these are two experienced coaches, Marcus Freeman in terms of running a defense. And they did a good job in the pass defense, keeping, as you said, guys in front of them. I thought the corners played really well, and you didn't really see too many Ohio State receivers get behind the defense, and that's a credit to everybody. And they did a lot of. There were times, at least one time, where they dropped nine guys back and just rushed two. There's other times where they just rushed three, and they're trying to just dink and dunk, and that allows, like, the Notre Dame plan on offense was to take up as much time as possible by dropping 7-8 guys on defense. That also takes time off the clock because you're trying to keep things short and in front of you. So I think the entire plan was the offense and defensive plan were complementary like that. And you saw with Notre Dame having like 49 plays of offense and Ohio State having low 60s or something like that. So it was a short game in that way, and I think it was a great plan by Notre Dame. They just didn't have the horses.
Ohio State's defense had a lot to say about that as well. As we saw the Buckeyes give up that big play at the very first play from scrimmage, but then after that Ohio State defense was stout the entire game. They were resilient. I think that was a huge point, was the fact that they had that give up that big play and then immediately held Notre Dame to just a field goal.
Yeah, that was a great reaction. It was kind of a quick change defensive thing where your offense gives up a turnover and the defense holds and forces a punt or whatever, but it's the defense giving up the big play and then stopping and holding them to a field goal. And really, the two scoring drives that Notre Dame had, it was the first one with a missed tackle, and the second one was a fluke bobbling catch that you do that 50 times, you might catch it 3, but they caught it that once, and that led to their 10 points. And I thought it was an outstanding effort, and one that Notre Dame's not the best offense Ohio State is going to face, but in the past, it hasn't taken a great offense to look good against this Ohio State defense. And for the Buckeyes to do what they did, yeah, I don't think you can be anything other than impressed.
Jim Knowles said it was a basic defense. They didn't throw everything at Notre Dame. Last time Ohio State was accused of having a basic defense, 2016, they went to the college football playoff. So I guess we can expect the defense to get better and more complex, although we're really not going to need to see that the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, the real test will be what this defense looks like against Wisconsin. I think when you've got a Badger team that's going to be set on running the ball. I thought it was interesting in this game where they were playing a physical team, a physical Notre Dame team, and they did not play 3 linebackers. They stuck to their guns and played their 3 safeties, and those guys did fantastic defending the run. They gave up 2 yards a carry as a team, but obviously, the credit goes to the defensive line, and the fact that there were really no missed tackles outside of that first one, significant missed tackles, and everybody was there to clean up each other's work, and doing so just by following their own keys and their own assignments rather than worrying about somebody else's. And just a well-run defense and well executed. And when the scheme and the play marry each other, you can go far.
Buckeyes ranked 2nd in the nation coming into the game against Notre Dame. As C.J. Stroud would say repeatedly after the game, this was a top 5 team. Well, not anymore, as Notre Dame falls to 8. Ohio State, despite a double-digit win, falls to 3rd in the nation in the latest polls. I suppose this is the portion of the discussion where we remind people that, yeah, we kind of saw this coming, and the only poll that really matters doesn't come out to November 1st.
Yeah, and you can look at things now and say, well, Ohio State beat a top 5 team. In that third quarter, when Ohio State is trailing 10-7, do they look like the second best team in the nation? I don't think they did. And really, as you said, it doesn't matter. But when you look at what Georgia did to what was then the 11th ranked team, I'm totally fine with getting jumped. I expected it at this point. And, it's still a very good win and still the best win that anybody has at this point. And as long as Notre Dame keeps winning, that win is just going to get better and better. And it could be a top 5 win again within a month.
Let's talk a little about Arkansas State. Butch Jones, the former Central Michigan, Cincinnati, Tennessee head coach. He's had success everywhere he's gone, maybe not enough success in Tennessee. He's the head coach at Jonesboro. He's got a lot of transfers, like 25 transfers have come in. So there's a lot of Division I FBS talent on this team that looked good against Grambling, but it's looking good against Hugh Jackson and Grambling.
Yeah, and the difference here is there's some skill, and they can get you one or two plays, and there will be some plays where the skill is even kind of matched up evenly depending on who's going against whom. But it's the second quarter, it's the third quarter, it's the fourth quarter, it's the depth where things wear down. But yeah, they've got some skill because they've, a lot of these guys are from Power 5 schools and they've transferred down to Arkansas State. So Butch Jones has always had a good offense, so you would expect that to continue. And then there are singular guys on defense that can make plays. It's just a situation where they don't have the depth and the numbers to just hold up if Ohio State is playing well. And that's where we get back to the competitive excellence, where you need it against Notre Dame and you need it against Arkansas State, because you can't have any letdowns. It needs to be even killed all season long. And if you have ups and downs, the downs come at the wrong time and you lose.
One last thing I want to circle back to, C.J. Stroud. We saw him perhaps be a little bit more elusive than we've seen in years past. Saw him do a lot of those rollouts where he had to escape a little bit of pressure, and that's something that he said he has been working on all summer. That's the reason why him and Mick Marotti put in all that weight room work to put on a little more muscle, keep the speed up, and we saw that really pay off against the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, it was a lot more running than we've seen from him in the past, and he said it wasn't really in the offense last year, but I think not all of that was planned, because some of that was just him escaping out of the pocket away from trouble, but then keeping his eyes downfield. And I know you have a segment of the Buckeye fan population that is imploring him to run, and he had the one play where he didn't run and he chose to throw instead. And what I counter with is, would those fans have preferred that he ran on all of the other throws that he completed and pick up 6 yards and punt, rather than the necessary first down yardage on a throw to Mayan Williams, on a throw to Emeka Egbuka, on a throw to Marvin Harrison, where you move the chains? Like that's why he's throwing instead of running on a lot of those, is because he thinks he can get it done, and most of the time he does. But if you've worked this hard on getting better as a runner and getting stronger and getting faster, it's okay to show it past the line of scrimmage every now and again.
Coaches always say they don't pay attention to the outside noise, but we kind of got a hint this past Tuesday that Ryan Day does hear a little bit of that noise, as he kind of tongue-in-cheek said, I'm sure there's a segment of the Buckeye fan base that was happy that we went jumbo down at the goal line, and maybe we could have run some fullback plays or ran the famous Dave play a little bit more. So Ryan Day was in a little bit of a better mood, with good reason, today.
Yeah, always a better mood after a win than a mood after the loss. And it's something that you probably you have no time for as a coach before the game, but after the game you can decompress a little and have some fun. But yeah, I mean, they did go heavy. They brought in Josh Fryer, an offensive lineman, as an extra blocking tight end. So and they've done that in the past. But yeah, it would have been nice to maybe see Dave in there, to honor Jim Tressel's favorite play, and Jim Tressel in attendance there.
With Jim Coleman with him too.
Yeah, there you go. But baby steps. You don't want to go full Jim Tressel right out of the gate. You got to work your way towards it. I mean, they've gone under center more, and they continue to do that. But I formation, we'll see. Give us some time.
All right, thank you very much, Tony Gerdeman from BuckeyeHuddle.com. Appreciate your time.
Thanks.